Assalamu alaikum everyone, how are you? I am Abdurrashid Amin Haji speaking from the studio of Istiqlal TV. You are now watching the voice of Istiqlal. We will talk in this episode about the delegation of propaganda and Chinese genocide crimes in East Turkistan. I am in Istanbul in Istiqlal TV studio, and there are other very important and honorable guests with me. From Malaysia, Dr. Olsi Jazexhi, journalist, historian, lecturer at the International Islamic University of Malaysia. Nice to see you with us. Assalamu alaikum. And also Sheikh Abdulsalam Alim, a vice president of East Turkistan Muslim Scholars Union, and he's now living in Australia, Adelaide. Nice to see you. I just want to go straight to the topic. So, as everyone knows, that the delegation from the Arabic countries, mostly Arabic countries, which actually this delegation established or created by a World Muslim Communities Council, which based in Abu Dhabi, Al Emirate. So this organization, responding to the invitation of China, visited the East Turkestan, the center city Urumqi, and now today, as we know, they are just continuing their visit and trip in Kashgar city today. So they visited Urumqi, and we also know that in this trip, in this delegation, the president of the World Muslim Communities Council and his Secretary General, and also there is other person from Egypt, and also from Bosnia, from Tunis, and other Arabic world joined this delegation and visited. And also, unfortunately, after the visit in the first days, we saw that the chairman of the delegation, the World Muslim Communities Council, he just published some statements about his trip to the East Turkestan. He said his name is Dr. Al-Rashid Al-Nuaimi, and he said actually there is a very good situation for the Muslim communities, and he just congratulated the China for its the policies in name of fighting against the terrorism. And he also said there is ethnic, religious, and also the national identity has just continuing within the harmony. So we saw this delegation actually just stated in the interest of China. I just want to ask my first question from the Dr. Olsi. So because he has experiences about the delegation, because he was the part of the delegation in a few years ago, and also he is the one who released very important data, important situation about the ongoing genocide in East Turkestan. So I just want to ask you, can you talk a little bit, just summarize your previous travel with delegation to the East Turkestan and what happened there? How was your trip, and how did China just find you, and how get you the invitation before, and why they choose you, and what happened in your trip? I just want to know, and after that we will continue with other questions. Thank you.
Well, I visited East Turkestan, Urumqi, Aksum, and Kashgar in August 2019. I'm having my voice coming back. Can in a way to reduce?
Yeah.
And in the time I was invited by the information office of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, and I went through the same visit that even Dr. Ali Rashid Al-Nuaimi and other Islamic clerics have gone. So what China does it tries to do a tour to journalists, or in this case, Islamic scholars. These are guided tours where Chinese authorities, they send people like us to visit museums and institutions, and in exchange, they expect from us, so that when we come out of Xinjiang, to lie, to tell to the world that things are fine, that there is no problem, that China is a benevolent country which loves the Uyghurs. I was checking the visit of Dr. Ali Rashid Al Nuaimi, and the points that he has issued in his so-called official remarks. And I believe 99% all these points were written by Chinese CCP officials and were given to him. It is very unfortunate. It is such a shame for the Islamic Ummah, for the Islamic world, what has happened. It is a defamation. It is a crime. It is a crime to justify. And for our Islamic scholars who have visited Xinjiang, East Turkistan, to have just had a good time. I went through the same visit like they have gone. They have. I know probably even the places that they have gone, the food that they have eaten, the hotels that they have gone. They have followed the script of the Chinese government to the letter, but unfortunately, they didn't do the honest job that an Islamic scholar should do, like an Islamic intellectual in my case should do, to properly investigate and understand why the Uyghurs are treated in the way as they are in Xinjiang, why the Chinese authorities, after all, are so interested to sponsor people like me, or like these Islamic clerics from United Arab Emirates, Tunisia, Bosnia, and Saudi Arabia, people like Dr. Ali Rashid Al Nuaimi. I saw the videos that the Chinese propaganda has released about his arrival. He received the red carpet, like as if he is the Prince of Abu Dhabi. So it was all a staged reception by Chinese authorities. In a way, it was used to slap people like me. I'm Muslim, and I believe in Allah, and I told to the world the truth. So this visit was made to discredit people like me, and to show that what people like me have witnessed in Xinjiang is simply some CIA paid propaganda and fake news, while we have these Islamic scholars who have come to Xinjiang and they have witnessed that the Uyghurs are having a wonderful life.
So I just have one question actually. So do you think, what do you think, why did China just find you and choose you to be the part of the delegation? Why, the reason? Because the China, as we know, a lot of Muslim scholars, or a lot of like activists or journalists or representatives of some government like Turkey and Malaysia, they just demanded from China to let them visit East Turkestan. But China didn't allow them to visit, but why they just choose you as they choose the Al Nuaimi this time? So is there something that the China just trust you and not trust anyone else, and why the reason, do you think?
I was checking the list of the scholars who had visited Xinjiang, and it was very surprisingly, we did not have any Islamic cleric from Albania, my country, or Turkey. It seems that the Chinese now, they are very suspicious of the Albanians. Now, Dr. Ali Al Nuaimi, he was sent there from his government. When I was in 2019 in Xinjiang, and we witnessed how Chinese authorities were jailing, were declaring terrorists, Uyghurs who had beard like you, Abdul Rashid, who were jailing people only for wearing hijab, or for reading Quran, or for praying to Allah, or for doing nikah. We were all shocked. We had, by the way, we had two journalists from United Arab Emirates who saw with their own eyes, like me, who felt like me what was happening to Uyghurs. And before, when we were ready to leave Xinjiang, I asked these journalists, "Are you going to report what we have already seen?" They told me, "No, our government is going to jail us if we reveal what we have seen." Now, back to your question, why did the Chinese choose me? For a number of reasons. Number one, I am an anti-American and anti-imperialist author. I am an anti-Zionist,
Yeah.
anti-Israeli. I am a pro-Palestinian. I have been part of the group of Russia and the Muslim world. I have visited Russia. I have published a book against Israeli apartheid in occupied Palestine. And in one of the chapters of my book, before visiting Xinjiang, I was congratulating China. I was praising China. I was saying, may God bless China for the support it gives to the Palestinians. So I had the right CV. And moreover, I was coming from the civil society. There are many articles in Albania where they accuse me as being an anti-NATO, anti-war, anti-imperialist. So I was a perfect candidate. I was coming from the civil society, but what it seems that the Chinese, they got the lesson with the scandal that they had after I visited East Turkistan. Now they are selecting only official or officially appointed representatives because they do not want hotheads like me to go in Xinjiang to investigate, to interview the Uyghurs, and to reveal to the world the circus that China does in order to hide its genocide against Muslims and Islam.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. So my another question actually to the Sheikh Abdulsalam Alim. So maybe you know what was the statement from the Al Nuaimi, and maybe we will expect the same statement will become from the other the delegation members. So, and in the statement we saw that this person actually he praised China, and he didn't mention about any crimes China admitted, and also he just trying to explain the world that what China is doing with the same language China uses, which is the fight against the terrorism and extremism in the region. So can you just talk about what is the really happening in East Turkestan? So what is the real situation, as you know, and is there any is there anything like this? The Al Nuaimi just explained that describe it as there is a harmony, as there is a very good situation, and there is a very good condition for Muslim. So what is the real situation? And what is the real situation of Islam and in this matter? Thank you.
Thank you for this question, and I appreciate that you allowed me to be in this program. And I congratulate your guests also talking about this issue, taking part in this. Being the member of the community, East Turkestan community, living abroad, and we have the experience. We had this kind of experience previously. It's not the first time the visits delegation going to East Turkestan. And it's number one, it has been always by the invitation of the Chinese government, because there was cases where some Muslim organizations requested that they want to come and see the situation, but they were not allowed. And a very real example now, what you can see, that Dr. Olsi was not invited this time because he spoke the truth. And what that delegation, which is from 30 people from 14 different countries, took this trip and visited China. It is an East Turkestan, part of East Turkestan, started from Urumqi, which is the capital city of East Turkestan. It happened by the invitation of the Chinese government. That states very clearly to everyone that it is something organized by the government, and they have selected countries and members of the organizations and some people who acts to be the leader or the representative of the Muslim organizations, and those organizations are not independent organizations. They are by the government. They are the voices of their own government. Now here they are not doing something purely for to investigate and find out what is happening there. They are just acting on behalf of their governments, and also to create some sort of harmony between them, their government, and China. That's the whole point. So to achieve that, they need to come up with certain lies, hypocritical lies, that which they have done, and has released this statement saying that there's harmony. Okay, when you talk about harmony, what is the trends or the definition of harmony? The harmony you're talking about is that because you were well received, you're being given the 5-star reception, everything, and you've seen that people who came in the streets, for example, applauding for you, they are the people organized. They are actually Chinese government's agents. They are the ones. So they see the only harmony part. They don't see the real story behind, which is known to everyone. International community knows about it. Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and many other organizations have released, based on facts and witnesses talking about the situation there. Millions of people are put in concentration camp. Many millions are in prison, and the story goes on. And many underage children being taken away from their homes, and the human rights violations have reached to the level that no history has witnessed in the past, and that is all known to everyone. Now, when you talk about the real situation of East Turkistan, the Muslims, are they really in harmony? Are they really being given freedom to practice? One simple question I want to ask the Chinese government: what did you do with the thousands of mosques which were built in the 80s, 90s, and 2000? In the 30 years, in the 3 decades, there were more than 50,000 mosques all over East Turkestan. In every city, hundreds of mosques built by the people, by their own expenses. The Chinese government did not pay anything, no fund from the government. It was from the pocket, from their own earnings of the people. Now, it is proven, and there are videos and clips everyone has seen, and it's published on YouTube everywhere, that more than 25,000 mosques being destroyed, demolished. And I can give you my example from the city where I come from. In my city, within the 5 kilometers radius, there were at least six mosques, and it used to be packed every Friday in the 90s. Now, none of them exist now. They have turned it into either car parks or gardens or museums. They didn't even allow any trace of that to be saved. So people are completely banned from the basic practice of the religious freedom. They can't go to the mosque because the mosques don't exist, except that there are some 1 or 2, 3 big mosques left in the main cities like Urumqi, so that they can stage up drama when they invite people like this delegation. They take them only there, and then they ask people to come and pray on that day when they come. If they request the government, okay, we want to go to wherever we want, any mosque that we want, they don't allow them, number one. They are always supervised. They were always watched. They are not allowed even to talk to any shopkeeper, any public, any bystander. No way. And Dr. Olsi is the witness for that, because they can only talk to those people who planned, and they say, okay, this is the person you can talk to. This is the person you can make interview with. These are the things. Now, for the last 7 years now, since 2016 onward, the East Turkestani community living abroad in diaspora have been completely cut off from their families. Now, those who managed to reach to them through maybe some different ways, indirect ways, through the WeChat or other instruments, they cannot even say Assalamu alaikum to their family. And one of the interviews I watched, like, also when he asked the girl, she mentioned her name, beautiful Islamic name, but when he asked her, are you Muslim? She said no. Why? The question is very clear, and the answer is very clear, because they cannot say it. They're being completely controlled from in and out. They can't say it. And if they say anything from their will, then next day they end up in prison or in concentration camp. So it is what they are actually releasing as a statement to the international community is nothing but a lie, and it's against their own belief. It's against our iman, our aqidah, because the Prophet ﷺ said that a true Muslim does not cause harm to another Muslim and does not give in or submit a Muslim into the hand of enemy. Now, what is happening is just the opposite of Sallallahu said. Okay, they talk about, you know, we will do our best to help the Muslims there. In what capacity you are helping us? Are you watching and witnessing what's happening there and ignoring the oppression and the zulm it's happening, and now praising the Chinese government, while the other international communities, European countries, by facts, by evidence, said that there are genocide happening? Even the human rights chair last year when she visited, said there are lots of human rights violations happening there. And she could not even release, because there was a pressure from the Chinese government that she should not release her statement, what she found out. But she had to do it one day or just a couple of days before she resigned. And it's one of the very clear facts that, you know, what is happening in East Turkestan to the Muslims are a genocide, is a violation against their basic rights, against their religious freedom, against their human rights, everything. And it's so clear. But now, this is something that we were expecting, that this is not the last or first. It will continue like that. China always acts like that because of the help and the diplomatic relationship and the economic relationship and support they give to those countries. And just recent visit of the Xi Jinping, Chinese president, to Saudi Arabia, where he said, you know, we support Palestinian cause. And that's clearly the double standard. You know, they support Palestinian cause while they are genocide to the Muslim people in East Turkestan.
Thank you. There is one thing I just want to talk with Dr. Olsi. Actually, according to a lot of reports actually published by UN or UN Human Rights Council or UN High Commission for Human Rights. So even the last released report even mentioned one thing, that the China doing all the policies, all the genocide or all the human rights violations actually in name of fighting against the terrorism and extremism. And in that report we saw something that in the UN delegation actually found that the China framed the essential fundamentals of ethnic group, which is Uyghurs or other ethnic group like Kazakh and Kyrgyz, and also the essential fundamentals of our religion, which is Islam, as extremism and terrorism, and also didn't clarify clearly what is the level and what is other rules. And then the China punished the people and targeted a population of belongs to a religion or ethnic group. So, and also we can see that from other reports published by, for example, like Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, and others. And also we know that last year in London, the London Uyghur Tribunal also ruled out that there is a genocide happening, and also there is a crimes against humanity is happening in name of fighting against terrorism. So in this, the troop delegation, we saw that the delegation also used the same thing, that the China actually fighting against terrorism, and the China this time they succeeded. And also when the UN High Commissioner published it is a report, the China also released another report with that. In that report also China mentioned about it is the experiences and history and a lot of testimonies about it is fighting against terrorism. So, but we know that there is some camp survivors, actually they witnesses that they are nothing to do with actually the terrorism or anything. Only the crimes they have, as you mentioned it before, that only they're Muslim or they're just practicing Islam, or they have some relatives outside, or they visited any other country. So that kind of crime is actually framed as terrorism. So I just want to know that when you visit the last time, because we don't know anyone can be just want to witness from this delegation. So I just want to know that from the 2019 when you visited East Turkestan, did you also face the same propaganda held by China? They just explain it to you that China is doing this to fight against the terrorism. And do you think those all the talk, speech, or maybe there will be some documentaries or video or some visited or museum. All are they are just convincible for you or others, maybe the ones in this delegation, convincible for them that the belief that the China is right, or the Chinese propaganda is not something convincible. I just want to know that what is your opinion that the China just frame it Islam or ethnic identity as terrorism? So I just want to know this thing from your side. Thank you.
Well, let us put it simple and plain.
Yeah.
China in Xinjiang or East Turkistan is fighting against Uyghur Islamic identity. So especially since 2009, when we had the great Urumqi Intifada, or what in English is called as Urumqi riots, when the Uyghurs, they rose against Chinese colonialism, like the Palestinians rose against the Zionist colonization in Palestine. China has decided to have a final solution with the Uyghurs. And the final solution that China is doing against Uyghurs is to totally eradicate the Turkic and Islamic identity of the Uyghurs. Now, in order for China to justify its crime, it pretends that it is fighting three evils. This is separatism, which means Turkic identity of the Uyghurs, terrorism, by which they name radical groups like Daesh and others, and they have some terrorist attacks which are done in the past, and then extremism. By the word extremism, China means Islam. So, as it was mentioned previously, in Xinjiang or East Turkestan, nowadays people are afraid even to say Salam Alaikum. For people who have seen my videos when I visited the Aksu Vocational Training Center, which was a prison for Uyghur Muslims, in my videos, if you have seen them, when we say Salam Alaikum to the prisoners, they are afraid to respond, but they respond by Ni Hao, because China has declared everything Islamic to be a crime. Now, regarding the latest visit, China always follows the same script. The latest Islamic scholar delegation visited probably the same museums that I visited. They have a museum against terrorism in Urumqi. They visited factories, and they visit even the so-called Xinjiang Islamic Institute of this Abdurraqib, I forgot his name, who he is a Communist Party official. So what China tries to do, in a way, it tries to show to the world that, look, we're not fighting Islam here, but we're fighting terrorists. And they play always in this museum the videos of these terrorist attacks. And the official propaganda is that because we had some terrorist attacks in the past, now we are eradicating Islam. So what China does, it tries to have its own version of war in terror, like the Americans started their global campaign against Islam after 2003 with George W. Bush. So they try to show to the world that, look, we are like the Americans, we're fighting terrorism. But at the same time, because as it was mentioned by Sheikh Abdulsalam, while China has prohibited Islam throughout the region, has bulldozed and destroyed many mosques, it has created a puppet imam. This man by the name Abdurraqib, who is not even Uyghur, he's ethnic Chinese, if I'm not wrong, and they have turned his mosque in a kind of a circus for foreign visitors, where foreign visitors are being brought to visit Mr. Abdurraqib, who is a Communist Party official, and he pretends to show that look, there is Islam in Xinjiang. Yes, you have a mosque in the Institute of Abdul Rakib, where the Communist Party even prepares some fake imams who will serve to its propaganda. But the overall picture of Xinjiang, at least of 2019 that I have visited, is that in the whole region, Islam has been declared a criminal ideology, and as my interviews has proven to the world, is that if you practice Islam, you are considered a dangerous person, an extremist, you are arrested, and you are being sent to jail. But what happens with many foreign visitors, like we have the example of, I forgot the name, of what was his name? Of Dr. Noemi and others. Look, many of these officials, when they go into Xinjiang, they do not want to cause any diplomatic incident. So they simply go to five-star hotels. Some of them, if they are lucky, they probably can even have sex with some Chinese ladies so that they can be videotaped and to be used later on to be blackmailed by Chinese. They are being sent to expensive and nice restaurants. They are shown slave Uyghurs who come in front of them and dance like slaves. And when they finish their five-star tour, they go back to their home countries and they get congratulations from local Muslim regimes. They create no diplomatic incidents. They do not investigate. They do not, but they are not even allowed by Chinese authorities to go in the street and to question people and to ask them if they are free to practice their religion. So it is old circus and it is very shameful for these imams. May Allah have mercy on their soul for not doing the job that they're supposed to do.
Thank you so much. So, Sheikh Abdulsalam Alim, I just want to ask you one question. As I know, your organization, the East Turkistan Muslim Scholars Union, released a statement actually against this trip, against this propaganda. So, can you just summarize the opinion of your organization and the response from your organization, and also the response from the Uyghur community against this issue?
Yes, East Turkestan Muslim Scholars Union, who is representing the Uyghurs and actually trying to educate them about their religion, which they have been completely deprived back in East Turkestan. As in Turkestan, there is no sign of Islam is left, because every sign, every teaching, everything to do with Islam has been banned, destroyed, and people are brainwashed. Young generation have been completely destroyed now because they don't know anything about Islam at all. Their lifestyle, the language, the dress code, and the normal day-to-day activities have completely changed now. The people who live in our side, if they are allowed to travel back, and if we go there, if we see our little cousins and nephews and nieces, there will be a problem to communicate with them because the young generation are taught Chinese, they can't even speak their own language. So the Uyghurs in diaspora, they are trying to be the voice of the people, trying to bring the truth about the situation of East Turkestan. And as our organization is one of those various organizations trying to serve the need of the people in terms of their religious knowledge, understanding, education, and it's based in Istanbul. And we have many representatives around the world, and I represent Australia here. So we have straight away, as soon as we found out, we got really saddened. We were heartbroken because we felt that this message is not about a political thing that they are doing it to please Chinese government. It's actually sending a very, very negative message to the Muslim world, especially to the Muslims, Uyghur Muslims living outside, and they are looking at Islam. Unfortunately, there are some who are living in the Western countries. They compare it. They see that Western countries are supporting their demand the basic law, which is the legitimate demand. And on the other hand, the Muslim countries who are supposed to be their brothers and sisters in Islam, they are silent, but they are not only still remaining silent, but rather they are supporting and encouraging Chinese government to be more harsh on the Uyghurs. This is actually causing for the normal Muslims, that is it Islam that allows the people to treat their own brothers in this manner? Although the Quran states that Muslims are brothers and sisters, okay, but the reality is completely different, and they are unfortunately making a question mark on those people, how they represent Islam. Their trust Islam and the Muslims become completely unfortunately going very, very bad. So we as an organization, we try to explain, look, you don't have to judge people because of their clothes, because they claim themselves to be Muslim representatives. That's what Islam teaches. Islam doesn't teach that. Islam teaches justice. Islam teaches that you have to be just, even if that your standpoint of justice is going to harm yourself, your parents, your relatives. You need to be just. But unfortunately, they are forgetting that commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is clearly stated in the Quran. And Allah says that believers are supposed to be protectors of one another. And they are not protecting, rather they are pushing their own brothers into that oppression. They know it's not again. And if they say we didn't know, that's again another lie. They know it, and they have their own government services of departments. They know every country has a foreign affairs and the various departments. They know about each other. They know the situation. They have seen the witnesses talking about what they have gone through in those concentration camps, which they claim to be the re-education camp. So we condemn everything that is done by the Chinese government, communist government, against Turkestan, on their resources, on their language, on their culture, on their religion, on their basic human rights. And in this time also, we released a statement saying that this is a propaganda organized by the government, and it's a deception made by the government with their other Muslim countries, the governments and the diplomats, and to actually give them some sort of interest. And those countries are doing it only for the sake of interest, and they don't deal with anything in the name of Islam now. It's finished, unfortunately, especially in the Muslim countries. They only see it how can we keep our government, or how can we prosper in our economy. And China is being very supportive of that, and that's why they become the slaves. A very clear example of Pakistan, for example. Pakistan is a neighboring country, and they know the situation. And that country, the never ever spoke the truth. All the leaders, they know, and they close their eyes and they say that what the Chinese government is doing right. Now we have to ask them one simple question. Yes, okay, if they say that they are doing this again to control or eradicate terrorism, extremism, okay, what is the definition of terrorism? So if you say it's the religious mind people, now what they have done through their education camp, and based on what they call it is the concentration camp, they have killed millions of people. They imprisoned millions of people who are not even understand Islam. They are Muslims by name. They don't even practice. There were many musicians, singers, intellectuals, university professors, okay, and from all parts of the life, they have imprisoned there. They put them in concentration camp, and definitely they have targeted the Muslim scholars. Definitely, they have killed thousands of them. And a very famous, well-known scholar who translated the Quran, the first person who translated the Quran into Uyghur language, has been put into prison with his whole family. More than 30 members of his family put there, and he was killed there. And there's so many more examples like that. Now, how can one try to justify that what the Chinese government is doing is right, and they are doing the right action against extremism? Okay, if they mention those photos or the stage drama about the clips that would cause those problems, like little things happened in the past. Okay, how about that which happened in 2009 in Urumqi, the Urumqi massacre? Who started it? Chinese government started it. Because people came out in the street demanding justice, basic justice. There was nothing to do with the Islamic right or whatever. They said, okay, what happened in Shaoguan, that where the workers being attacked and killed in cold blood in one night? The people came out, we want justice, and they were carrying Chinese flags. Chinese government's flags in their hands. What happened? How did they treat them? They were shot, they were killed on the streets, and thousands of them being arrested, and the lives are not known, and many people don't know what happened to their children. So this is the reality, but unfortunately, this is a very sad thing that these kind of delegations or the visits, sometimes like a Chinese government is organized, and sometimes some people they are paid by the government, Chinese government, for some incentives they get. They write things in the media, they write in the newspapers, in the magazines, saying that, okay, China is an amazing country, they are doing a really good job. Now, from the Chinese government's their own claim, okay, there's one example. For example, they made Han Chinese atheists to stay in the houses of the Muslims. And they said in 2018 they were successful to make 1 million families, okay, in the whole East Turkistan, that the Chinese citizens, Han Chinese, were established, that they were organized, that they stayed in the Muslim house. Men left. There were only women, elderly women, young girls probably. And in what capacity you can accept that? Okay, I mean, it's there, but I cannot understand how these people can even accept this kind of invitation. Even if they accept it, then they have to be fair for everyone, because they will be definitely asked by Allah, and they will be questioned on this. And I think they enjoy a little bit of this couple of days visits, like in a 5-star reception they've been given. But the price they're going to pay in future, definitely on the day of judgment, will be very, very severe. May Allah guide them.
Yeah, thank you. So actually we are just closing to the end of our episode. I just want to ask one question actually from both of you. So we can saw that after the China started its genocide policy, the China just invited a lot of delegation from around the world. But most of the delegation actually not the delegation of Western scholars or journalists. Actually, most of them actually from the Islamic world or from the Muslim. Some of them academics like Dr. Olsi, some of them journalists, some of them activists, some of them just Muslim scholars, ulamas. And also we can start that actually after the COVID and during the quarantine time, the China held a lot of online conference actually with the same people, with the same profile to continue its propaganda. Do you think this kind of propaganda which China doing towards to the Islamic world, including the one in the East, the Arabic and the Turkish world, and also the one in the West, the Muslim communities living in UK, Europe, and Australia, and Canada, and USA. So do you think this propaganda made by China, did it success? So do you think the Muslims in the East or the West really believe it, what China is saying? And do you think this kind of delegation can represent the real opinion of the Muslims around the world? And maybe you can talk about the response from your country, the country you're living, maybe like about Albania, about Malaysia, or about the Australia, or also maybe someone in Arabic countries. What's their response, and how this kind of the propaganda impact actually how is the impact of this kind of the delegation trip? So let's start from the Dr. Olsi.
Look, what China is doing with countries like United Arab Emirates, it is like what Israel tries to do with United Arab Emirates, the so-called Abraham Accords. Now, there are two kinds of truths. You have Muslim governments which are not Muslim. They are in Jahiliyyah, like the Saudis, Emiratis, and others, who have wonderful relations with Israel, and they say, look, Arabs in Israel, they have a wonderful life. And then you have the general public who knows what the hell is for Arabs, Muslims to live in Israel and in occupied Palestine. The same thing is happening now with regard to East Turkestan or Xinjiang. China is doing what is Israel doing with a number of Arab countries who have decided to turn a blind eye to the crimes of Israel against the Palestinians. And the same way as the Arabs have abandoned the Palestinians, they have abandoned Masjid al-Aqsa to the Israeli occupation, the same thing is happening even to East Turkestan or Xinjiang. You have a number of Arab governments like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and others who say that China is a wonderful country, there is no problem, Muslims are not suffering there. So, is China successful in the diplomatic level? Yes, because it has found countries which we suppose that they are Muslim, but they are not Muslim. They don't follow the orders of the Quran. But China finds such clowns to show to the world that, look, things are fine. And this is exactly what Israel is doing with the United Arab Emirates and with Bahrain, the so-called normalization agreements with Arab countries. Israel is trying to show to the Islamic world that we have no problem with the Palestinians. And the same thing China is doing. China is copying what Israel does in order to show to the world that things are fine. We have no problems with Muslims in Xinjiang. But there are two kinds of truths. One is the political one, so what the political power wants to present to the world, and the other one is what humanity knows. And humanity knows that China has no mercy for Islam. China is eradicating the Islamic and Uyghur identity. It is committing a genocide. I was commenting on my Twitter yesterday and today with a pro-Palestinian commentator who was calling me being a US propagandist and others. But I told him, look, the issue of East Turkestan is like the issue of Bosnia when it suffered Serbian aggression, and like the issue of Palestine. So, like Allah orders us in the Quran to always speak the truth, we have to say the truth, even when we hate it and when it is against us. Now, another part of the question that you made is why China invites journalists and scholars from the Eastern countries and it doesn't invite from Western countries. Simple, because the West has taken a political stance against China. Does it mean that, let us say, the United States government cares about Muslims? No. We know from their history they are imperialists, they support Israel and others. American government and Western governments, when they speak about Uyghurs, they don't speak because they love Allah and Muhammad or that they care about Muslims. They speak because they have their own agenda. But this doesn't mean that the Uyghur issue doesn't exist. And why the Westerners and the Americans condemn the genocide that China carries out against Uyghur Muslims, this doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It exists. China is destroying Islam. China is committing a historical, a cultural, and a religious genocide against the Islamic civilization in East Turkestan. And as a teacher of history that I am, I'd like to remind the public who sees this video, is that East Turkestan is very important in the history of Turkic and Islamic civilization. And what China is doing now to East Turkestan, it is as horrible as the crimes that the Soviets did against other Turkic republics in Central Asia. The Chinese are acting like barbarians. And for those scholars who went to this trip in Xinjiang and they decided to remain quiet, they have done a crime for which, in the day of Qiyamah, they will have to respond to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that the greatest form of jihad is to speak the truth to power. These scholars who keep the robe of the Muslim cleric during their visit in Xinjiang everything they were, but they were not Islamic clerics. Our Prophet ﷺ would have been ashamed of them.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is the Sheikh Abdulsalam with us, or? Yeah. So can you also just talk about your opinion about this issue, if it is possible? So do you think that China has succeeded in its propaganda towards the Muslim communities?
Now it seems, because of the current situation of the politics happening in the world, and especially the relationship between Chinese government and the Muslim countries, it seems that they are achieving some of their goals, but the truth will prevail. We all know that, and the truth is known to everyone. Yes, some governments are acting like that, but the people of those countries, the governments, are actually aware of the situation, and the common people are making dua, at least praying, organizing khutbah and programs in the Muslim countries and also in the West. So yes, they are trying to invite delegations like that, give them incentives, make promises, false promises for them, so that they can help their governments more and more. But in reality, as Dr. Olsi said, that the world knows about it, and when the Western world is helping, it's not because they love Islam or the Muslims. They are doing it for their own agenda. But the truth is, there is a problem happening. And because this has happened to the people in the West, in Germany, to the Jews before, and because when they came together in the United Nations, they have promised that they will not let anything like this happen again. But it's happening right now in front of their eyes. And unfortunately, what's happening is they try to make their point and try to bring this as part of the agenda in the United Nations, but that only works by the vote. And again, what happens is, in recent, a couple of months ago, again, when they decided to talk about this issue of Uyghurs in East Turkistan, they had to open that file to bring it to discussion. They had to get the vote. Unfortunately, again, the majority of those who voted against that topic was Muslim countries. And this is how the Chinese government is actually taking advantage of the weaknesses of the Muslim countries by giving them incentives, by helping them in their economy. And what is happening as a result of that is the people of East Turkestan is suffering. And this, we believe, and we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we know that Allah will help us. But at the same time, we are those members of the delegation responsible for their false statements that they made.
Yeah, I think there's a connection problem with the Dr. Abdulsalam. So my last question, actually it is not the question, actually it is just asking your opinion. So for beating and for just like in this issue, just China doing it is the propaganda. So for this issue, what is your call actually? What is your say towards the Muslim leaders, actually the real representative Muslim leaders in the East or the West? So what is their obligation to do this in this issue, in this time? What they should do to just destroy the plan of China, the false propaganda? What is this your say and call towards them? And what maybe there's anything you should just point out that what kind of points or topics they should mention in their statement against this propaganda?
Well, the Muslim leaders throughout the world, first of all, they must return to Islam. They must become Muslim, because most of them, they are not Muslim. And second, once they get Islam seriously, then they should follow the Sunnah or the history or the tradition of the prophets of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in the Quranic histories that the men of God, the prophets of God, people like Ibrahim alayhi salam, like Nuh, like Musa, like Muhammad, like Jesus, they spoke the truth to power. Jesus challenged the Roman rule in occupied Palestine. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he challenged the Quraysh tyranny in Mecca. Musa, he challenged the superpower of his time, the Egyptians, the Pharaoh, and he spoke the truth to the Pharaoh. Musa, he didn't make compromise with the Pharaoh. If these Islamic scholars who visited Xinjiang, they were to follow the example of the prophets, they would have done what Musa did to the Pharaoh. Musa was part of the ruling elite of the ancient Egypt. He was the adopted son of the Pharaoh. He was raised in the palace of the Pharaoh. But when he saw what his government was doing to the Jews, because they were believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and after being guided by Allah into the path of justice, he rebelled against the Pharaoh. He rejected the luxury of the Pharaoh. So even these Islamic scholars who have remained quiet, if they were to follow the example of the Quranic prophets, the example of Musa alayhi salam, they should have told to the Chinese, thank you very much for the 5-star reception that you have done to us, but we have to tell some truth to the world. We have to tell to the world that you didn't allow us to investigate what is going on, that your so-called fight against terrorism is a fight against native Muslims, and they should have done some homework and research. They shouldn't have isolated themselves in hotels and in nice lunches and dinners that communist officials have offered to them. They should have asked from the Chinese officials to visit villages, to investigate people, to go and to understand where are the mosques. And the greatest irony, I think I mentioned this even in one of my Twitter posts, is that there is a picture of these Sunni ulamas walking in Urumqi, and in their back is the Chong Bazar Mosque.
Yeah.
If these Islamic ulamas would have turned only 10 meters and would have asked the Chinese authorities, you brought us here to Xinjiang to inspect what you are doing with Islam, can we please enter in this mosque? If they would have gone to the Chong Bazar Mosque, they would have found that the Chinese have destroyed it. It is not a mosque anymore. It is a supermarket where Chinese shopkeepers are selling things and even pork inside. And this would have been enough for these Sunni imams to understand what is happening in Xinjiang. But they have preferred to be politically correct. But this is not Islam. This is against the tradition of all the Quranic and biblical prophets. Isa alayhi salam, he didn't make a compromise with the ruling Jewish elites or even with the Romans. Musa didn't compromise his faith for the sake of the power that the Pharaoh was giving to him. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he sacrificed himself and his family, and he was persecuted because he spoke the truth to the Quraysh. So if these so-called Sunni clerics are really Islamic clerics, they should follow the path of Islam and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
Thank you so much. I just want to ask again my last question. Actually, it's not a question asking you, just summarize your call. So I just asking you, that China is doing this, the propaganda to the Muslim world, Muslim communities in the East and the West. So now they just brought some people in name of their are the representative, the Muslim leaders or Muslim scholars. So do you think what is the real, the obligation of the real representatives, which is there maybe like imams, famous scholars in the East or the West, what they should do to beat this, the propaganda, to help the support the East Turkistan? What your call to them, what your say to them, and we will finish this episode, inshallah.
Is that for me, the question?
Yeah. So what your call?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Mike, firstly, as Muslims, it's our duty to help the poor, needy, those who are oppressed. That's a very simple statement. Was that? So what we can do in this regard is we need to raise awareness, educate people, okay, about the truth happening in East Turkistan, the genocide, or the oppressions and atrocities happening there. It's the reality there, and many Muslim countries do know about it, as we mentioned earlier. And many, in some countries, there have been many protests organized by the Muslim organizations with evidences that they have seen and witnessed those human rights violations happening there. Secondly, this delegation, the members of this delegation, we want them, if you are unable to meet with the people, the local people in East Turkestan, in that city you are visiting, in Urumqi, in Kashgar, wherever you are going, so please come and speak to us, because we are the people of East Turkestan. We are living outside. We are the people who know the story, we know the reality. So our doors are open, and we will provide you with the truth, the information about the situation, because as Muslims, we are told by Allah in the Quran, someone who you cannot trust brings you an information, do not take it until you investigate it. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا. So a fasiq here we are talking about within the Muslim community. If a Muslim brings an information that he is not that trustworthy, don't take it just because he says he's a Muslim. So now the situation is that a kafir, a disbeliever, a government which is totally against religion, not only Islam, the communism see all the religions as opium of nation. It's a poison. Okay, they say that these people of East Turkestan, the Uyghurs, have disease in their mind. They are carrying disease in the name of religion. So we will treat them. We will help them. That's what they say. Whoever goes to the concentration camp, as they claim that's a re-education camp, they say that you have disease, you are sick. We are going to help you. We are going to cure you. So, if a non-Muslim government is giving that deception and wrong information, to investigate it. And how they can investigate? Can they go to the people? Can they go to any mosque? Can they say they can enter the mosque and pray? They can't, like Dr. Olsi just mentioned right now. So there are hundreds and thousands of Uyghurs and the ethnic Turkic groups living in diaspora in the West, in Turkey, in various parts of the world. They should talk to them. They should ask these questions, and they can find out the truth, and then they can say what they say, because now they are doing it one-sided. One-sided it is, even if they say that we didn't know, but we were given this information. Based on that, we said that what we have seen is harmony in East Turkestan. Okay, fair enough. Okay, they may argue on that one. But the question is, have you heard from the other side? Because a Muslim does not judge. As cleric, a Muslim cleric, because they are representing Muslim, they claim that they are representing the Muslim world. I'm saying, Muslim Community Council, World Muslim Community Council, and they say the world as if they are representing the whole Muslim world. So if they are doing that, then you must listen to both sides. Then base your statement and then make them. So until then, we totally condemn everything they said, everything they released in their statements, and we will continue in our mission of raising awareness and going to those Muslim countries, inshallah, one by one, telling them the truth about the genocidal crimes that committed by the Chinese government against the people of East Turkestan.
Thank you so much. Actually, the both guests just mentioned it, very great topics, actually, just to clarify what is happening in East Turkestan and what is the China trying to do, and what should the Muslim communities, the real responsible, the obligation towards the Muslims in East Turkestan. So, and also in name of the Uyghur people, actually, people of East Turkestan, I should express our gratitude towards the Dr. Olsi, because he actually just destroyed all the plan of China last time when he released it at the real situation in East Turkestan and witnessed it. And alhamdulillah, after that, I think this kind of the delegation propaganda of China actually lost a lot of its impact as it expected by China. So alhamdulillah, we finished our episode. I just again express my gratitude and my thankfulness toward my two very honorable guests. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And also just gratitude my gratitude towards our the people who watching this episode. Please share it and follow and support East Turkistan. I am Abdurrashid. This is the voice of Istiqlal from Istiqlal TV. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.